Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. This is Max with A1 Website Pro. Today we have a very extensive tutorial. It's going to be written in PHP, but a lot of servers, they'll only allow you to send out 250 emails a day or 50 emails per hour and so on and so forth. So you have a website, you have a server, and sometimes what happens is you have to go to something like MailChimp or FeedBurner to deliver all your emails for you, because they have that ability. Well, I'm going to show you how to have this ability yourself. Okay, now this is going to be PHP programming. So, and I'm going to show you how to use A1 Website Pro to program this for yourself. And then in this tutorial, you're going to have all the stuff that you need in our PHP tutorials lesson section. So, what we're going to do is we're going to use Notepad++. You can see here I just set up my I used my XAMPP. I started up my XAMPP. I'm going to be using Apache and MySQL with PHP, and you can see here I have in my XAMPP htdocs. If you go here, PHP email, this is where we're going to create all of our files to make our program. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get started right now, so you could send out so many emails per hour, and we'll customize this so that maybe a person can set it up on a server. So let's get started. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to have to do is create a database, right? So I'm going to create a new file and create database.php. Now remember, I have my my database thing running now. The one thing that I'm going to do is we're going to utilize A1 Website Pro to help us write all these codes. And if you go here to create a MySQL database, PHP and MySQL, we're going to grab this little code right here. Okay, copy just like that. And let me set this off to the side. We're going to open with a PHP tag like we have to in PHP. And we're going to paste that in there and then close out that PHP tag. So here we're connecting to the server name, the user. Now you know that these are just variables, so I have to set my variables, right? So what I'm going to do is go up here, server name equals localhost, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and set up two more. I'm going to hit Control-D 2 times. This next one's going to be a username, okay? And then, of course, this one's going to be the password. So, localhost, username, and password. The username is going to be root, because this is on the local server. And then the password is going to be nothing, okay? And then I'm going to save that. Now, right down here is where I'm going to create the database. And the first database I'm going to create is newsletter. Okay, so let that, there we go. And then database created successfully, or if there was an error in creating the database, it's going to give me the error. Okay, now I'm going to save this file, and in my browser, I'm going to bring up my browser, and you see I got my local host running. So we want to go to, if you see off to the side here, PHP email, so we'll go PHP email, then slash, then create database.php. Okay, and we see that the database was created successfully. Now, if you want to check it, let's go to our local host, and then here we want to write PHP myadmin. myadmin, just like that. And that'll load up PHP myadmin, and you see newsletter. The newsletter database was created right here. Okay, so we did that all on PHP. Now you could do it right here, but I'm showing you how to do it in PHP so you don't have to connect it there. All right, so now that we created the database, we don't need this anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do is just we're going to go ahead and delete this file because the database is already collected. And the thing is, you got to remember the name of the database is newsletter. Okay. All right, so we're going to delete that because we've already created the database. We're going to bring over our trusty old A1 Website Pro that's going to help us through all of this stuff here and go down to PHP lessons. The next thing that I'm going to have to do in order to make this work is create a config file. So let's go ahead and make a config file to connect to the database. Click on that here, scroll down, and this little trusty code here is what we're going to use to connect to make a config file. So we can connect to this database and upload tables and so on and so forth to it. So we'll take this out of our editor, create a new file, and we're going to call it config, just like that. All right, and then we're going to open with our PHP tag, just like that. We're going to paste in our file. We'll go ahead and close the PHP tag with a question mark and caret to the right. Now right up here, do you see this? We're connecting our local host. That's a server that we're using. The username is root, right? Okay. Our password, we don't have a password. But now what's our database name? Newsletter. That's right. Okay. So now what we want to do here is we're going to run this script, and if the MySQL connect, if it has an error, it's going to tell us failed to connect to the MySQL. Else, we'll just echo connected successfully. All right. We have a little delay on Notepad++. I'm going to restart the computer so we don't see that anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to go ahead and run this script real quick. Okay. So create database. So now we want to see if the config file is working. Config. Okay. Now it's connected to the database successfully. All right. Now we're ready to start putting tables and everything into the database. Okay. So right back to A1 Website Pro. That's going to help us out. You notice we here have make a config file. We connected to the database. Now we're going to create a new table in MySQL. So we're just going to open that up on another tab. Okay, we're going to scroll down here, and you can see how the database goes here. You know, here we have the ID, description, values, and a timestamp. So we have this right here, and if you're just copying the codes, we're already like including the config file and stuff like that in A1 Website Pro. So what we want to do is we'll call this one. We'll have it. You know, it makes sense. So we know what these particular files are doing. So create new file and create tables. All right, and then so we'll got .php just like that. And right here we can see that we're creating a table. Let's create a table that says newsletter. Okay, and here we'll have. Let's say, you know, this is the newsletter that's going out. First, we're going to give it an ID, okay, and we're going to have it auto increment. The next thing that we should do is give it a title, okay, and we'll make that varchar and the 250 limit. The next thing that we want to do, we'll go ahead and duplicate this, and we'll call this content, okay, and instead of varchar, maybe we'll use text. So right here we go all caps TEXT, just like this, and this will put a timestamp in there for us, so we know the time that it was created. And then so we'll go here, copy this newsletter. If it's created successfully, it'll tell us it was created successfully. We'll go ahead and save this, and what we're going to do is run this on our browser. So let's go ahead and bring our browser over here, and what we want to do once again is localhost, right? PHP email. Whoops, get my caps off. PHP email. Instead of the config file, we're going to do create tables. TABLES.php, just like this. All right, now it says that, you know, it connected successfully and it created that table. So how do we verify that? Well, if we're in php.myadmin, we click this newsletter, we can see that this table newsletter has been created. If we open it up and look at the structure, we have the ID, title, content, and the timestamp. Okay, so now we have that one. Now what's the next thing that we're going to have to create? Well, the next table we're going to have to create is going to be users, right? Okay, and it too should have an ID. And instead of title, we should have, you know, the email address, right? The other thing that we're going to do is we need to know whether or not this particular user has been emailed in the past hour or not. And so what we'll do is we need to have a box here saying whether the newsletter that they've been emailed. So we'll say newsletter or news email, all right? Or how can we just describe that better? Emailed. We'll just go like that. And instead of text, we'll just use it as a varchar. Okay, varchar, just like that. I should have, I made a little mistake in the 250. I should have put 250,000 in the text. So if you make a mistake, you could actually change it in phpMyAdmin under the structure. What we'll do is where it says content here, it says tiny text. What I want to do is I want to change that. You know, we could say 255,000. You know, or whatnot. Now that doesn't really matter. It would have went through anyway because this is tiny text now. So, but just in case you feel that like you need to change it, you can. All right. So what this particular thing is going to do is tell us yes or no whether this person has been emailed. Okay. Now, some of the other things that we can include in the email, if you wanted to, all right. Now, remember, this is a newsletter going out. If you want to make it personal, you could put, you know, name, you know, and include their name, email, and then, of course, put the timestamps on it. Now, this email, this is going to be the most important part of this whole process because here we're going to see if they've been emailed. Okay. If they haven't been emailed, then we're going to send them an email. So this is going to probably just be the ID of the newsletter that we created in the last one. We're going to take advantage of that here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this script, table users, and we'll go ahead and save that. And then all we have to do really is right here, we're going to refresh, and it says users created successfully. We'll go here. We'll click on newsletter, and now we have newsletter and users. And this is basically all we're going to need to be able to send emails every hour to a particular user. Okay, so then that way we don't bog down the server or, you know, have other things be in there that we don't want. All right, so we've already created our tables, so we can actually go here, and you notice the config file was being called in every time. All right, so that's how we were able to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this. All right, say yes. Okay, so now we're back to just have the config file. So we'll close that out because we need to be able to connect to the config file. Now, what we're going to need is a newsletter creation form. So what we'll do is create a new file. We'll call it news form, just like this, .php. And here, what we're going to do is this is where we're going to write our newsletter. And I'm not going to put the entire thing on video here. So let me pause this. I'll create a news form, you know, that you could fill out, and then be back and explain it. Okay, here, so we put in the HTML tag, a head tag called, and we called it news form. Then we started the body, and here's and then we have an H1 tag called news form, and then we start the form. And then the method that we're using is post. Action is to self because we have nothing in there. If we were going to another page, we could go to process.php or something like that, but we're not going to do that. We're going to process this form on this particular page. Okay. Input type is text. The name is going to be the title, and this is where we'll put the title. And then here we'll have text area, that's going to go in the content section, and then we have a button called submit. All right. Now, what this form, it's not going to look glorious right now. Okay, it's going to look like this. All right, news form. This is where we put the title. Here's where we put the content. I noticed that my title placeholder is not showing up, so I must have done something wrong. I misspelled placeholder. So we'll say placeholder, put title here. I'll save that, and this just lets you know where you need to put that stuff. All right. So here we go with the news form. Now you're like, hey Max, that isn't too cool. I'd like to be able to put other stuff in here, like images and stuff. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. We're going to use a form. It's called CKEdit, CKEditor. Okay. Now, CKEditor, what's nice about this is that you can bring in the form and let it do the thing for you. So what you'll do is you'll go to the website here, and let's see here. Let's go to the download section. But here is where we can use the CDN, the Content Delivery Network, and we can select full package. What you do is you take this script, copy it, and then in this head tag, what you want to do is just paste that script in there, just like that. Okay, then go back to the website, and there's a little piece of JavaScript that you need to put in the thing. So you could go to the demos. Let me see here if we have a the demo here, and you scroll down. There's a little piece of JavaScript code. Do you see it right here? This is what we want to do. We want to grab this little piece of JavaScript code, copy. And then here, right underneath the form, we want to put script, just like that, and we want to paste in that. Now, this is targeting the editor 1, right? So what we want to do is we want to target content, because that's the name, where we want to give this an ID of content. Whoops. ID equals content, just like that. All right, we just take this little thing and replace this editor 1. Okay. Now this is an extra plugin that we just need to get rid of. So let's just get rid of that. We'll save the file. I'll refresh it. Oops, I refreshed it, but now here you go. So now you have this little editor in here where you can do all these different things. Like for instance, if you have an image uploaded to your website, you can put the URL in here and whatnot. So let's go ahead and finish coding this, because now that the form is created, we need to process that form and get it into the database, right? So what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to go back to A1 Website Pro, okay, under the PHP lessons, where it says insert into database using PHP and MySQL. Okay, now MySQL is an object-oriented program, or called OOP process, but here you go. It's really easy. It's this little code right here, and the only thing that you got to make sure is that you include that config file. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to copy this. I'm going to show you how to edit it. And here we'll just go above this HTML. All right, and we'll start our PHP tag. We want to include then the brackets config.php, because that's what connects us to our database, right? Okay, and then we'll paste in this code, and then we'll close out the PHP tag. And if that happens, so that's what it should look like. Okay, so now we know our database. The table is newsletter, right? Okay, so we're going to be inserting into there. The very first row is title, okay? So we want to insert title in there, okay? We want to insert into the content, right? Title and content. And then that's pretty much it, because the timestamp will do its job within the database itself, okay? Now, where are we getting these variables from, var1 and var2? Well, what we want to do is we want to get these variables out of here. So what we want to do up here, all right, is we want to say if, and then curly bracket, is set. We're going to see if this is set. And then $_post, which is a global variable in PHP. And we're going to see if something is submitted. See, if submit. And if you look down here, we're checking to see if this button was clicked, okay, by clicking this here. And then we start with our curly brackets, all right? Now, what we're going to do is just copy this little thing right here, because it's just going to make our life a little bit easier. And we could call this var1, but what we want to do is just give it something that's meaningful, like title equals, and then submit. This is where we're going to grab that title, right? Okay. And then we want to take this title, copy, and put it in here. So that title is going to be inserted into the title. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this and make sure that the content, okay, make sure the content gets put into the content. All right. So this form, this particular form right here now, we're going to see if it's set, and then if it is, we're going to insert this stuff in here. So let me X this out, or let me put this inside these curly brackets so it takes place. Now we should echo us out a message, something like echo newsletter has been submitted. Just like that. Okay? There you go. So we're going to do that and bring up our browser here. We're going to see if we could submit a newsletter using our form, okay? So let me copy this, let me get rid of that here. And we're going to go to our newsletter, and let me go ahead and see if we have any error messages. We can see that this connected successfully it keeps coming up. So to get rid of that, what we're going to do is just echo nothing, okay? We don't need to see that every time. And so we're going to come here, we're going to refresh this, and we're just going to put test. This is a test post. And let me show you how to put an image in here. Let's say that let's go to A1 Website Pro. Let's grab an image maybe from the bottom here, or let's just grab my logo. So we're going to right click, copy image address, okay? Let me close this out so we don't get confused. And this little thing to insert an image, because that's what people want to do a lot. You insert the image here, and here you can adjust the width and the height, and give it a border if you want. You can even link it. We can link it to a1websitepro.com, just like that. All right, and just click OK, and you can see now we have an image in there. All right, this is a test newsletter. And all we want to see is if it's being inserted into the database. So we'll click Submit. Now notice we have an undefined variable, var2. So if we go here to our news form, you can see that this var2, I should have put content in there. Copy, content. We'll save that. Okay. So it's very easy to make a mistake. Just if you know what you're doing, just go ahead and do it. So we're going to, let me copy this image. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just refresh this. And this is a test newsletter. Okay. This is a test. We'll go ahead and do that image thing again. Put it in there. Whoops. Go ahead and grab, copy image address. Go ahead and put it in here. All right, we see that it's in there. Click OK and then hit submit. Now notice newsletter has been submitted. We're ready to make another newsletter if we want. So this is another newsletter. Okay. We'll just put another one just like that. And the purpose of this is to make sure that our database is working correctly, right? That it's giving us our things. So it says that this newsletter has been submitted. Well, how can we tell without going to the database if this stuff is actually working, if it's getting submitted? Well, go back to the A1 Website Pro lessons, and what we want to do, see this? Retrieving data from MySQL PHP. Very easy code to work with. And so we'll scroll down here and grab this little config file, or grab this little retrieving file, okay, and we'll just call this a new file. We'll call it retrieve or see data. All right, that makes better sense. .php, just like that, and we're going to paste it in here. Now let's edit this code a little bit. Now the config file, we definitely want that. Now this is bringing in a new config, but we don't really need this. We don't need this line. Okay. We want to select all from what? Newsletters. Is that the name of the I think if you want to know, you just come back here. See, it says newsletter, so we don't want newsletters, we want newsletter. Okay, and we know the one row is called title, right? Let's just duplicate this. We know one row is called ID, the next one's called title, the next one's called content, and the next one, it has that date in there, but I'm not going to echo it out. And then we're going to close that. So if we select all from newsletter, it should repeat the two newsletters that we have, right? So what we'll do is we'll come back to the our little thing here, and we'll go see data, file that we named. And, well, I got it misspelled there. See data. And here we go. Here's our first newsletter. Here's our second newsletter. So here we have two newsletters, and they're being repeated. Okay. So test 1, test 2. Okay. Now, how do you know they're being repeated? Well, this is a while loop. Okay. And if we go echo, we can echo a horizontal tag here, HR, just like that. So you can see them. It'll give it a little bit of separation here. See, here's the first newsletter, and here's the second newsletter. So where's that one test coming in? Well, we actually have 3 newsletters. This is number 1, this is 2, number 3, because we're echoing out the ID numbers, right? And if we went to our database and clicked on newsletters, you could see that we have 3 newsletters. But this was the first one where we were trying to test it out. Okay, so that's how we retrieve stuff from the database. Now, so we have these 3 different newsletters that we're ready to, we're ready to email out, let's say. So, so if we go to our users, okay, if we go to your users in our database, we're going to have to get some users in here because right now we have 0 users. So creating a user is actually pretty easy. And this news form, what we can do is highlight it all, copy, save us some work, create a new file called users.php, or how about user signup.php, just like that. All right, and we're going to paste that in there. And now we're going to edit things. First, we need to say user signup, just right here, and we capitalize user and the title. Copy that. News form, user sign up. Okay, so here we have, what are we requesting in the database as far as user sign up? Well, if we go to users, user structure, we need an email and a name. Okay, now this email ID we're not going to mess with because that's going to be automatically put in there. Okay. So let's go email and name. That's what we need. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the content area. So here we could put name, right? And then input type, we could actually say email here because that's an HTML5 characteristic. Copy. And then we could put name here. And then put email here. All right? Okay, so, and then after this form is submitted, we could get rid of the script because we don't need it in this particular page. Okay, because there's no content area. And so we could get rid of this script too because we don't need it. And insert into users. Okay, and what we want to insert into there is the name and email, right? So, name, email. Okay. So this particular one will be name, email. Okay, and it's good to just go ahead and make these variables match your stuff here, and then go ahead and change it here too as well, as far as your values, because we're taking these values, we're storing them in this variable, and then we're inserting them into the database. And then we'll say user has been submitted. Okay. So we can get rid of a lot of these spaces. We don't need them. So let's go ahead and insert a bunch of users into our database. So here we go. we'll bring this up. Now the name of this file is user signup. User signup, just like that. .php. So put a name here, Maximus McCullough, and then maybe we'll use, I don't know, customer service at A1 Website Pro. Maybe put another name here, Maximus MCC, and put David at Metaphor Music. Let's see, Jack Smack, then Max at a1sold.com. Oh, let's see, let's put Johnny Smith, and then Johnny at a1sold.com. Okay. All right, so we have these email addresses. So how can we check to see how many users we have in the database? Well, under See Data, we see that we can connect to the config file, but let's go ahead and get users. Is that the name of the database? I constantly have to go back here and check, whether this is the name of this particular database or not. And it is. It's called users with an S. So I got to make that with an S. And we just go put name and then email, just like that, right? Just to make sure that it's coming back from the database. And then so what we want to do is go back here and click See Data. All right. All right, so what's the problem? Well, we're selecting all from users. We have an ID, name, email that we're trying to retrieve. Well, let's see if this particular stuff is in the database. So let's go ahead and go to users. Now we notice that nothing has been inserted, so we have a problem, right? So what we'll do is go back to user signup, and here we put name equals name, email equals email. We come up here to submit. We have all these things. Now notice here, user. I forgot the S there, right? So we're going to have to make sure that we, remember that kind of stuff because it's kind of important. Users is the name of the database. So what we'll do is we'll come back to where it says user sign up and start over again. Put these users in here. Jack Smack, Max at A1 Sold, and then maybe Johnny Smith. And it doesn't matter, we could use the same email address, but doesn't matter. Okay, so now let's go back and see the data. So if we go here, see data, we could see that here are our usernames and emails coming through. Okay, so this is just a small scale to show you how to do it. Now we have to set up the ability to be able to go back and get these emails and then send each one a newsletter. So that's going to entail creating a new file. Send newsletter.php. Okay, just like that. Send newsletter.php. Okay, now what we're going to have to do in this particular script is find the last newsletter that was written. Okay, so how would we, because we don't want to send old newsletters to new user signups, okay? What we want to do is send them the most recent newsletter. So how would we do that? Well, we'll go to A1 Website Pro again, and whenever we're retrieving data from the database, we can actually use the See Data one, okay, which is very similar. And we're going to copy this entire code, copy, and then where it says send newsletter, we're going to put this piece of PHP code in here, and we want to select from newsletter. Okay, and let's make sure that newsletter is the name of the thing. Yep, newsletter. Okay, and now we have the ID, and we could just echo out the ID. All right, and it's going to look like this. Hold on. Go ahead and bring up our browser. Send newsletter.php. And notice it has 1, 2, 3. So all 3 are being called in there. You notice I just took out the other thing, and then it has the horizontal line. But now, let's say that we wanted to grab the last newsletter. So what we would do is put in all caps, order by, and then ID, right? And then we want to go DESC, which means we're grabbing the last one. Now what this is going to do, let me show you. It's going to put them backwards, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So, but now we want to grab the very last newsletter. In fact, let me put in the title and the content just so I can show you what's going on to avoid confusion. All right. Okay, I got a parse syntax error. That means that I made a boo-boo. All right, so right here on title, you notice I don't have my closing quote here. All right, so we'll save that. These quotes are very important. Okay, so we have 3, 2, 1. All right, the first one was just that test, and here's the second newsletter, and here's the last one that we wrote. All right, now what we want to do is order by descending and then put limit 1. That means we only want to see the last result. Okay, so if we go back here, this will show only 1. This is the last newsletter that we wrote. Okay, and that's the one that we want to send to our users. Okay, now what are we going to do next? Now what we want to do is actually, we could close this up, and what we want to do is grab this particular entire code, right? Let's paste it down here. Now we're going to select all from users, okay? And what we want to do is we want to go see if they have been emailed a newsletter, and if they haven't, we're going to send them a newsletter. So we want to select all from users. We don't care what order that they're in. Okay. But now we have this ID right here. Okay. Now we can store this ID in a variable. So basically, we're going to create a variable, news ID equals row ID, because we know that this is grabbing the last newsletter. Okay. Copy. Select all from users where emailed, okay, E-M-A-I-L-E-D. Okay. And then what we want to do is use these carets. That means not, where emailed is not, and then the variable. Okay. So what we're doing is we're selecting all from users where emailed is not whatever this new ID is, okay? And then we'll come down here and put user and then email, just like this. Okay, now it should echo out all the users, okay? So we'll save this file, and we'll bring up our little thing here, newsletter, refresh. Now we have an undefined index on line 15 and send newsletters. So let's go ahead and see what that's all about. Okay, so user is users, right? So those are things that you just got to be cognizant of. All right. We still have an undefined index in line 15. So let's see here. Echo row user. So let's go to the database itself and see what we're calling that particular table name. So look at this. Look at the structure. We're calling it name, not user. Okay, so we'll say name. I figure if I keep all the mistakes in the video, it'll help you out as you go, and then you'll know how to debug and get things done. Okay, so let's go here and we'll refresh this. Now you notice every one of them are calling back, right? Now we know that the last ID in the this particular script here is 3, right? So this ID is echoing out 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate the database a little bit. All right, so this Maximus McCullough, this first user, let's go ahead and go to his particular one. Okay, and let's scroll over here, and let's just put the number 3 in there. All right, so let's go ahead and refresh this page. Now you notice he disappeared. That means that he will not get the newsletter. Okay, he won't get that newsletter because his emailed thing. So let me go back and take this out of here. All right, we'll refresh this page. All right, so 1, 2, 3. None of them have gotten the newsletter yet, this newsletter yet, so we have to send them the newsletter. So how's that done? Well, now that we have our structure set up where we're going to get the last newsletter that was created, and then we're selecting all the users, what we want to do is email them that newsletter, right? And then after that, we want to update it. Now here's the word of caution. These results variables, let's change these a little bit. We'll put another T on the end so we're not collecting the same results as up here. And for a row, we're going to put a little T on the end of the rows, just right here, to keep things separate, because as you continue to program on, you might have a little bit of trouble whenever you're trying to call in variables. So we're going to just change those just like that. And if we refresh the page, you'll see that everything is exactly the same. Okay? So this is just a little thing to help you that, if you're using the same variable, you've got to remember that's being called in. Now, how do we email each time? Well, this row goes through a loop. Okay? And now what we want to be able to do is update each user and put this new ID in there so that if they're sent that email, it's going to update. So how do we do that? Well, let's go back to A1 Website Pro, where it says PHP lessons. And what we want to do is update a database in PHP MySQL. All right? So we'll click on this, and you come down here, and you'll notice that the syntax is just a little bit different. Okay? So we're going to just copy this little code, come back here, and as these emails are being sent out, and I'll show you the PHP email script, but we need to update these particular users. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this ID, okay? We're going to turn this ID into a variable. We're going to call it user ID, okay? Equals. Now, so we want to update users, okay? We want to update the same thing. And we want to set the emailed, copy, we want to set emailed to the new ID, all right? So $1 there. I want to set email to where this user, or let's say ID, because we're grabbing the user ID, where user ID equals user ID. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit. Take that equal sign out of there, and we need a single quote right there. Okay, so when I was pasting it in there, that's what happened. All right, so what are we going to do? What's the script doing? Okay, so first let's solve. So we're going in, we know that we're getting the last ID of the last newsletter, right? And then we're going down here, we're going to query the users where emailed is not the new ID, okay? So we want to see, where it's not. And then we're going to query the name and the email. We're going to send them an email. But first, what we want to do is update the user, okay? We want to set emailed to the new ID, whatever that user was, okay? And then where the ID equals user ID. So what is that going to do? Well, let me bring this over right here. See, emailed, we're going to be putting the number 3 in there. So if we go here, we see our users, right? We refresh the script. Now the users disappear. Why? Well, let me show you what happens in here. You notice we have 3. So that was the last newsletter ID that was emailed to these users. Okay? So it's pretty simple and straightforward the way that goes. Now, up here, since let's say that your server can only send 50 emails an hour. what you would do is put limit 50. So if you had, 1,000 users, that this is going out to, you would want to limit it to 50 an hour, because I'm going to show you how to run a cron job on this particular script so that, you can send it out every hour. So there's one thing here that we're missing, okay? The thing that we're missing is the PHP mail script, okay? Where it's going in and it's sending an email to those users. Well, where do we find that? Well, once again, if you go back to A1 Website Pro, okay, and you go to these tutorials where it's, PHP lessons, you could go to these PHP snippets, okay, and then hit Control F on your keyboard and just type in mail, just like that. PHP mailer, that's what we want, okay? So here is where we're going to grab this mailer, all right, copy, and we're going to manipulate these variables to our to what we want it to do. Okay, so now here we go. We're going to go in here right before we update that user. We're going to send them an email, okay, using this little mail function from PHP. Okay, so what we can do is take this title, store it in a variable, we'll call it the title, equals, just like that. All right, so we're going to take the title, copy, and we're going to make that equal our subject line. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, oh, sorry, that's wrong. Let me go ahead and right here is where we want title equals. And then we can actually, after Notepad++ catches up with me, and we'll put the title there. So now the title now becomes the subject line. Okay. Now the content, store it in a variable. We'll say the content equals. We'll go ahead and grab this. And down here where it says message, we're going to go ahead and take all this out of here. This little quote here, put our single quote on the end, or no quote actually, put our terminator, remove this first quote because we don't need it there. Alright, so the message becomes whatever the content is in this newsletter. And what it's going to do is it's going to shoot each and every one of them one by one an email from your server. So where it's going to go to, this is where we need to put the email. So let's go ahead and take this little variable right here, copy, we'll paste it in right here, equals. And you can actually put their name in there if you like, but I'm just going to take that out altogether. Okay? If you're collecting names, you just create a variable and put your name in the message. Now, so there you go. And this will shoot an email to all those users, okay? And then, it'll update the last ID for that particular user. Now, one of the things that you want to do is you want to go in here and change these email addresses, like, max at a1websitepro.com, and then you can have, no reply at a1websitepro.com. I'll make sure, wait for this thing to come up here. All right, so there you go. Now, what we're going to do is have a cron hit this script every hour, right? It's going to hit this script every hour, check to see if that newsletter had went out, right? If the last newsletter went out. And it's going to check them 50 users at a time every hour, okay? And if it hasn't sent them the newsletter, well, then it's going to email it to them, right? If it's already been sent, they're not even going to appear in here because we're checking to make sure where the newsletter is not, the new ID. So this will send these particular people, these newsletters. And this is how you can utilize, your SMTP relays. Now, you got to realize that some servers, they only allow you to send 500 emails a day. Some only allow you to send, 250. So whatever that is, you need to configure this limit, to however many users. Now this script will run every day, all day, using the cron job, and I'm going to show you how to set up that cron job in a little bit. But here what we're going to do is we're going to put something else in here. We have, limiting 50 users. Let's go ahead and order by ID and then ASC for ascending, and then we'll limit it to 50 users. Okay, so this script, it's shaping up as far as being able to utilize the server. Now I think this is going to be the introduction of utilizing it, because we're almost an hour into this tutorial as far as programming and everything, and this is going to be on my website, all these scripts that we created, so that you could just grab them and utilize them to your advantage. And it'll be under the membership. The membership's $10 a month at A1 Website Pro, and you get access to these scripts. But of course, you could always watch the video for free and program it yourself. And of course, these different scripts that I have under the PHP tutorials, these PHP lessons right here, these are all free, so you could be able to access these for free as well. So, but I'll put a link directly in this particular post to where you could get these scripts, and we'll continue on. The next lesson in this will be setting up the cron job. All right, so I hope this has helped some people out there, utilizing your server, and and the email problem of being able to only to send a limited amount of emails. Thanks.